And welcome back to our next edition of the CBB Review Studio podcast. Dan Siegel here, joined as usual, Matt Mlodzinski, Ariel Puterman. Part 3 here of our bracket breakdown for March Madness 2025. We did the East, we did the South. We are now doing the Midwest region today, and we'll be breaking down all of those games. We'll be talking each of the first rounders, voting the 3 of us to determine who will move on in our little simulation, and we will pick all the way to the Final Four. It's going to be a lot of fun. But first, Matt, take us away with a word from our sponsor.
Are you a high school or college student athlete looking to take your brand to the next level? Want to maximize your potential both on and off the field? Introducing Glory to Glory Sports Agency, where we take our athletes from glory to glory. At Glory to Glory, we specialize in guiding top student athletes like you through the complexities of the new NIL landscape and the transfer portal, ensuring you have the support and resources you need to succeed. Why choose Glory to Glory? Because they believe in more than just athletic prowess. They focus on your academics, personal, and spiritual growth, financial and future opportunities. Their team of experts works to craft a personalized plan that aligns with your goals, helping you shine in your sport and beyond. Whether you're looking for guidance on college recruitment, marketing your personal brand, or just need a trusted advisor by your side, Glory to Glory has got you covered. Ready to go from Glory to Glory? Join the Glory to Glory family today. Visit g2gsa.com or connect with them on Instagram at Glory to Glory Sports Agency to learn more and start your journey to greatness.
All right, thank you, Matt. Let's get started with our bracket simulation here in the Midwest region. And there we go. We're going to start with, there we go, Houston and SIUE. I should note Juwan Roberts, who is a key wing defender on Houston. He should be playing. There was some injury unknownness with him, but we think he's playing. We don't know fully how healthy he is, but we'll talk about that more, I feel like, down the line. As far as this 116 goes, I'm going to pick Houston. Matt?
I will say that SIUE is probably the strongest 16 seed for what that's worth, but Houston, just what they can do defensively, what they can do offensively. They're one of the most well-rounded basketball teams in the country, so I'm not expecting UMBC or FDU upset here. I've got Houston.
If Roberts plays, they win by 50. If he doesn't play, they win by 45. Easy win for Houston on to round of 32.
Yeah, I think Norfolk State's the best 16 seed for what that's worth, but I don't think that's worth a big debate. Number 8, Gonzaga. Number 9, Georgia. This Ariel and I were talking before the show, like there's a lot of sneaky upside to this region. It could be great. It could be terrible. I think this is one of the better games, though. We got Georgia, like I said, and Gonzaga. I'll throw it to Ariel first.
There are a few things that are better bets in life than picking Mark Few to win in the first round of the tournament. Sweet 16 is the actual stat there, but Houston's a tough one, and we'll talk about that later. Georgia as a team averages 12.7 assists per game. Ryan Nembhard almost does that by himself. Georgia also turns the ball over a lot. They're 287th in the country in turnovers per game. I trust this Gonzaga team. They're experienced. They've got a lot of talent. I trust Graham Ike down low to kind of neutralize Asa Newell. And then from then on, I just don't know which Georgia players will really step up. So I think Gonzaga wins this. I think it'll be a little bit close. I could also see them winning by 15.
Yeah, look, I feel bad for Georgia because I've been really on the way that Georgia finished the last part of the season. I felt like this was a Bulldogs team that we really saw come to fruition at the end of their SEC schedule, but they're playing a Gonzaga team that's playing their best basketball of the season. Ryan Nembhard is right up there as a top 5 point guard in the country. Just so much to like about what Mark Few has done with this Gonzaga team from start to finish. So I agree. I think Gonzaga wins, and I wouldn't say that it's necessarily going to be too close either.
9 consecutive Sweet 16s. That's the stat for Gonzaga, looking for their 10th. Obviously, like you said, it'll be tough to get by Houston, but I do think they get by Georgia as well. Gonzaga's also 9th in KenPom. They don't feel like a top 10 team in the country, but the predictive metrics do like them a lot for whatever that's worth. They have the history in NCAA tournaments. I'm going with Gonzaga. Moving on, we got the 5 seed in the Midwest, the Clemson Tigers against Will Wade and McNeese.
I'll start with this, if you don't mind. Yeah, look, last year, we know what happened with McNeese, right? Everyone thought they were going to be a popular pick, and it just didn't really work out. I think that people are a little bit more hesitant this March, and for good reason. There's part of me that wants to go with McNeese in this game, but then you have to look at a Clemson team that literally beat Duke, right? So we know the ceiling of this Clemson team. I think it's all going to be about what's the floor for Brad Brownell, because that's been a concern in the past. Lately, Clemson has been at the top of the ACC. I think they know that this is a sneaky team that they're facing. They know Amir Khan and why everyone has started to follow this McNeese team ever since their student manager got viral and everything. It's a fun story, but for me, I got to go with the Tigers. They have too much presence inside, and I don't think they get upset by McNeese.
I agree. McNeese's starting bigs are 6'6" and 6'9". Dylan Hunter, who's a key piece for Clemson, don't get me wrong, he got hurt. Looks like he's out for the season. He's their point guard usually. So instead of starting another point guard, they went with Chauncey Wiggins, who's 6'10". That means they have 3 players in their starting 5 that are 6'8" and taller. And like I said, McNeese only has 1 player who's 6'8" or taller in their starting lineup. I think they overwhelm them up front. I think it'll be a close game. I think Will Wade's a great coach. I think he's also kind of moved on to his next chapter already. He's fielding calls. He's taking interviews. This kind of slows down his process of agreeing to a new contract and starting with that NIL, kind of like we saw with Jai Lucas. So I think Clemson does it. They have a lot of experience from last year's team as well that made a deep run. So I like Clemson here. It's going to be a hot upset like last year, but I think same results.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree on that last point. I fully believe Will Wade is locked in, but either way, I do think Clemson wins this game. So full agreement across the board on the first 3. Hopefully we can get a little bit of debate going after this. But yeah, I'm going Clemson. The Southland is a bad conference. I will say McNeese did do well in the non-con. They had a 3-point loss to Mississippi State. They held Alabama to 72 in an 8-point loss, only a 4-point loss to Liberty. 6-point loss to Santa Clara didn't age as well, but like their losses were close. They competed with these teams, even if they didn't beat them.
Yeah, I think I just take them against all of their 5 seeds, to be honest.
What'd you say?
I think I would take them over all of their 5 seeds. I think Clemson's just a tough matchup.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but in my own bracket right now, I have 3 out of 4 of the 12s over the 5s, which I don't usually like to go with the trendy ones, but it is what it is. That's how it played out this year. But yeah, I think Clemson's also comfortable playing in what will inevitably be a low-scoring game. Chase Hunter really good. Jaden Zachary, Ian Shefflin. Too much consistency there. So I'm going Clemson as well. Here we go. Number 4, Purdue. Number 13, High Point. All right, let's mix it up a little bit. So I think this is a year of another Purdue upset. I don't know if that's surprising to hear from me, but High Point, they have a top 30 offense in terms of KenPom. They have a top 15 2-point percentage. There's so many different options on that High Point team. Like if you watch the Big South Championship, they basically won with like their 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th man. Like they won with their entire bench. It was crazy to see them just pull away like that. And it's Purdue, who is the worst 2-point defense in the entire tournament field, and by a pretty good margin. Only 18% of people picked sorry about that. Only 18% of people picked.
You good over there, Dan?
I'm joking a little bit, but yeah.
I think this might be a fake stat now that it doesn't come out of your mouth.
Only 18% of people picked High Point on the People's Bracket on ESPN. So I don't know. Surprising pick, but I'm going High Point over Purdue.
As Dan needs to go get a drink of water or something or get checked out for that, I'll take it next. I also like High Point in this game. Look, they have everything you need to win any basketball game against any team out there. It's just going to depend to me on their defense, because there were some defensive just problems that they had in the Big South tournament, and that was a big concern for me. I don't know if that's a concern for me against Purdue. Look, you got to lock up Braden Smith. You got to lock up Trey Kaufman-Renn. Past that, I think everything else is something the High Point is capable of. And with Jocelyn Bodo down inside, with what Keza Jiffa can do, what Kamani Hamilton can do, there's just so many names on this team, right? And Ariel, I want to give it to you because I know this has been a team that you've been on all season long, so I feel like you deserve the floor here more than me.
Thank you. Yeah, as a proud Huss Bus member since before the season even started, I've loved this High Point team from the start. This team has probably 4 or 5 Power 5 level players who just all decided to run it back last year after winning the Big South regular season, but missing the NCAA tournament after losing in the semifinal. They've got a former national champion in Bobby Pettiford. He won with Kansas. They've got a Texas Tech transfer down. Obviously, Texas Tech coaching with Grant McCaslin, so good experience there. And then they just have a bunch of guys who have been together for a while, like Matt Giffa and Bodo, Kamani Hamilton. They also have Dre Bonham, who probably gave us the meanest mean mug that I've ever seen in my life. If he gives us another one of those, I don't think Purdue can mentally respond to that. There it is right there. I mean, how can you compete with a guy like that? I think Purdue, Braden Smith really scares me. Also scares me that High Point didn't play any current teams that made the tournament. They played UAB and North Texas, beat them both. So, that says something. But I got to stay true to my roots and go with the Huss Bus and High Point here to pull off the upset.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind High Point's a really bad defensive team. So it's going to be one of those games with a lot of scoring. But wow. Okay, so we're all picking the 13 over the 4. Okay. Not original then. Next up, we got the 6 the 6 against the 11. So we'll start with the playing game real quick. Texas or Xavier, because that's coming up tomorrow as we speak. So who do you think wins in that first 4 matchup? I'll go.
I'll go with Xavier in this one. I was struggling to think if Texas or Xavier should make the tournament. I honestly think that Xavier worse than North Carolina, and I don't want to go on a big spiel here, but I really didn't think Xavier deserved to make it at all. They had arguably the worst non-conference of any team, power conference team in this. They won some games against the Big East competition. Cool. I mean, you're bound to when you play each team twice, so that doesn't really move the needle for me. But with that being said, you can't deny the talent of this Xavier team. Zach Fremantle, when healthy, is still a force to be reckoned with. Ryan Conwell's been big for this Musketeers team. I'll admit, I haven't watched Xavier as much as other Big East teams, so I need to be a little bit more up to date on them. But what I have seen is that it's a team that can take care of this Texas team, because I have watched Texas a few times, and I just don't know if Texas is capable of moving too far in March. So I'm going to pick Xavier for the first 4 game.
I'm pretty surprised you say that, because you've been very vocal about how anti-Xavier you've been, especially as of late, with the tournament selection and just how they've kind of skated by just beating better teams that they're better than and losing to the more important teams. I'll go Texas here. Trey Johnson was built for this moment. If you guys don't know who he is, he's probably a top 5 draft pick freshman, and probably one of the most gifted scorers we've seen in a while. He could go for 30. He's a great passer, really smart player for his age. Brody Terry, obviously not the most inspiring coach, but he does have pretty good tournament experience. He beat, Virginia last year in the play-in? Sorry, Dan. And then he made the Final Four run. So I trust Texas here to get it done and move on to the first round.
It was Colorado State.
Right. Sorry. I knew it was a low-scoring team.
Yeah. No, it was Colorado State, and then they play each other in the first round. But either way, yeah. I mean, this has a really high ceiling as a playing game, in my opinion. I mean, like you said, Trey Johnson could light it up. I think Xavier could go toe-to-toe with Texas. I'm actually going to pick Xavier to win. I'm just so glad Fremantle is finally playing in an NCAA tournament game. Like, he's been just injured his entire career with Xavier, and I don't know how many years he's been in college for, but it's great to see him finally participate in the NCAA tournament. I'll pick Xavier to win the play-in, and then I'll pick Xavier to get by Illinois as well. I'm not sure I love the ceiling of Illinois as an NCAA tournament team. They don't shoot particularly well. They've just been disappointing this year. I like the entire regular season, I tried to talk myself into Illinois being a team that was better than it actually was, because they're so talented. But inevitably they've lost so many games, and if you're not beating good teams, then at some point you just are what you are. So Xavier, even if you don't belong in, there's plenty of times where teams that don't necessarily belong in still advance and win a game or two, and that's what I think Xavier does here. So Xavier to the second round. What do you think, Ariel?
I like Illinois here. They're 4-1 since that Duke game where they lost by 40, and that includes wins over Purdue and Michigan. It seems like the team's really figuring it out. You know, they battled a ton of illness and injuries early on. Now they're all healthy for the most part. And they've been getting a ton of balance. I mean, Ivicic has been playing well. Boswell had a good game. Trey White's been good. Will Riley, really solid freshman. Then, of course, their star freshman, Yakachonis. He's been really solid as of late, as a ball handler and facilitator, not really as a scorer. So I just think they overwhelm them with talent there. Everyone should be playing. I know Morez Johnson's out, so that depth takes a little bit of a hit. But overall, I just like them over these two teams that, to be honest, I don't think really deserve to make the tournament. I already picked the winner of UNC San Diego State to be my play-in team to win that first round game, and I don't think both of the play-in games win their first round. So I'll go Illinois here.
I'll break the tie. I surprised you once. I'll surprise you again. I'm actually going to go with Xavier here to win this. I'll be honest. If Texas wins game one, I've got Illinois. But the big matchup for me with Illinois and Xavier, if that's the matchup that we get, is the freshman on Illinois, right? It's just a freshman-led team. And I tend to go with experience in tournament play. I know that probably doesn't sound right as a Syracuse fan because obviously a freshman-led team won the national championship. So it can be done. I don't know if it can be done as a 6 seed and those level of freshmen at Illinois. Obviously, they could go out and win a game, but I just feel like Xavier has so many experienced players that are hungry, like you mentioned. I think that's a big underlooked thing. It doesn't mean you're going to go all the way, but hungry teams can win a game or two in this tournament. I think that's what you're going to get out of Zach Freemantle, out of Davion McKnight, out of the Xavier team.
All right, and then the 3 seed Kentucky against the 4 seed Troy. Could someone talk me into why everybody's hyping up Troy? Is it an anti-Kentucky thing? Because I don't see much in this Troy team that indicates they could beat this Mark Pope Kentucky team. But if either of you want to try to convince me,
I'll give you 3 reasons. I don't think they're going to win, but I'll give you 3 reasons why. 1, Lamont Butler, not 100%. They don't have Jackson Robinson. He's out for the season, meaning they have, and Kirk Reese has been out for the season for a while, meaning they really have no point guard. They'd probably have to play Colin Chandler, Trevor Noah, not Trevor Noah, that's the comedian, Trent Noah, the freshman duo for most of the game. And you don't want to trust 2 freshman guards to carry your team. Sorry, Purdue. You guys know better than anyone else. Number 2, they led Arkansas by 1.5 when they played. They lost that game, but proves they can really hang with anyone. They also rebound the ball at a high rate. They're one of the best rebounding teams in the country. So you asked for 3 reasons. I gave you 3 reasons. Hopefully that swayed you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still gonna go Kentucky. I also did notice they scored 94 to beat Arkansas State in those Sun Belt finals, but I think that's more the exception than the rule with this Troy team. They're not like an incredible offensive team. I feel like they just physically dominated the Sun Belt, but they're not a team that's going to go out and really compete with a team like Kentucky. This is not your Cal Kentucky. Like, this is Mark Pope. He's a good coach. He's a good mind. He knows how to win games. He knows how to coach situationally. And Kentucky's worst loss this year is, off the top of my head, Ohio State in that neutral site game? Probably. So, yeah, I'm going Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't think there's a reason to pick Troy here. I think that also the struggles Kentucky had in the NCAA tournament, to me, were more about John Calipari than anything. This was not a UK problem. This was John Calipari not preparing his teams for March Madness. I think Ariel brings up a lot of good points on why Troy could make this game close in a 3-14 matchup, and I don't think it's crazy to think they can win this game, but I don't know. Just Otego always been playing out of his mind. Kobe Brea can just shoot the lights out of the ball. To me, those are a few reasons why, when it comes down to it, they're going to have enough to advance in this game.
I think this is one of those games where you're kind of sitting and watching the games, kind of half watching them as a casual fan, and you start to get a bunch of notifications on your phone. Troy is up on 3, Kentucky by 5 with 4 minutes left. Tune in now, and you're like, whoa, like, was not expecting that. Is Kentucky going to blow it again? And I think they kind of pull away at the end and go on like an 8-0, 10-0 run and win the game barely. Troy cannot hit a 3. They shoot under 30% as a team, but they have a lot of really talented guys who can get to the basket and score inside. So that's where I think they'll really thrive. I do think it'll be a really close game. And like I said, I think it'll come down to that last minute, couple free throws at the end, but Kentucky's the better team.
And there you go. That's the difference between Cal and Mark Pope. There you go, right there.
Yeah.
But Mark Pope hasn't won a tournament game. People forget. Of course, it was at BYU and not Kentucky, but it's not like we're talking about this experienced tournament coach versus Calipari. It's a guy who's never won before.
But he also hasn't lost games that like he should. Like there's one of my favorite stats. Torvik has this stat that's like wins above, like performance above seeding expectation, I think is the name of the stat. And basically it's just like how many wins above or below like the average for your seed you've won over time. And Kentucky's like towards the bottom of that. And with Cal and Mark Pope, like he's just around a zero. Like he just, he's done what he should do. But anyway, number 7, UCLA. Number 10, Utah State. Utah State has 7 losses this year. 5 of those 7 have occurred since the start of the month of February. I like UCLA here. I think they're a great defensive team, especially lately. Dai Mara coming off the bench is a guy that just swats shots all over the place. I think there'll be a lot of threes in this game. Both teams give up a lot of 3-point attempts, not necessarily good threes, but they give up a lot of 3-point attempts. Utah State is a better shooting team, but I ultimately trust UCLA to make the key stops when it matters. I think the difference in this game will be defense because both teams could certainly score. I think UCLA will need Tyler Bilodeau to bounce back. He was really quiet in that Big Ten tournament game. I think he does, gives them a solid 14, 15 points, and that's your leading scorer right there. They win this game.
I actually have Utah State winning this game, and I want to be careful because I know the Mountain West hasn't lived up to expectations. We all saw what happened last year, but I just really don't like this UCLA team. When you look at wins and their record in the Big Ten, like I think people might be surprised they're a 7 seed, but when you do bracketology and when you look at all the metrics, like I actually had UCLA as an 8 seed. Like they do not have great predictive metrics. This is not a team that fared well toward the end of the season with those. They just didn't improve them as the end of the season went on. It's a Utah State team that can shoot really, really good from 3. They move the ball well, top 10 in the country in assists per game. I mean, they're going to get this ball moving. So, yes, Bruins have a good defense, but also, is Mick Cronin's head in the right place, right? Is he in the right place? Especially after this Indiana job going to Darian DeVries. Like, what's going on with Mick Cronin? Is he looking for an absolute another job? Like, I don't know what's going to happen right there. So, I think that's something where I feel you guys have something to say.
No, he doesn't like playing games east of the Mississippi. I feel like this game is, right? Where is it? What's the location?
It probably is if Tennessee's the 2.
Yeah. We'll get back to you on that. But Ariel,
Lexington.
Hey, where is it?
I would guess Lexington.
Lexington, Kentucky. Okay, Ariel, what's your opinion on this game? Break our tie here.
Yeah, so I saw a stat yesterday. I don't know how true it is, but I looked a couple years back just to kind of get an idea if it was, and I think it is. The Big Ten is 15-1 as a 7 seed since 2000. Meanwhile, in the last 2 tournaments, Mountain West has been a 10 seed 4 times, and they're 0-4. And that's really all I need to see to really have an opinion on this. I think UCLA gets it done here for all the same reasons that Dan said. And I trust the data and the history. I like this Utah State team. They really kind of struggled at the end after such a hot start to the season. But how can you not agree with the stat that says a team is 15-1 and another team is 0-4 when they're in this position?
Because UCLA was not in the Big Ten during those years, Ariel. Come on.
They are now, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, and Mick Cronin will let you know during his post-game presser. But check out some of those interviews, by the way. He's one of those, like, I don't know. He strikes me as one of those guys that's just fed up with everything that's going on and maybe like a sudden sort of retirement. I'm not dropping any bombshells here. That's just like a very like personal instinct, but I could be
UCLA game's in Louisville, by the way.
Yeah. What'd you say?
The UCLA game is in Louisville.
Okay, Lexington, right?
Lexington,
yeah. All right, Tennessee and Wofford. This is our final first round game, the 2 versus the 15. I will say 2 things. So first off, sorry, I'm starting this again, but first off, if there were a 15 that were to be the 2, it's 100% this one, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't have the guts to pick it at all. But if it were to happen, it would be this. I think Wofford's a semi-dangerous 15 seed. I'm worried about Tennessee's ability to make a run with their style of play, although I do think Chaz Lanier is an X factor there. Yeah, if you have like some sort of inflated points bracket pool where you get a lot of points for picking crazy upsets, maybe pick this one, but otherwise I'm staying away. But if there are 15/2, I'm picking it. But in this simulation, I'm picking Tennessee.
You go ahead.
Wofford lost by 51 to Duke when they played earlier this season. That's all you need to know. Give me Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Dan, and the SoCon's been a trendy conference. I hate Wofford for many reasons, so I'm going to go with Tennessee here. They ruined my night one year when Seton Hall played them, so I'll never pick them.
What's the spread if Fletcher McGee plays in this game?
I don't care. I don't want to ever talk about that guy in my life. I want to bring this up right now because that was my least favorite day because Seton Hall and Syracuse had 2 tip times. They were the 2 latest games that night. I waited all day for it, and they both lost. So I had a very sad night that night.
Yeah. Nothing will be as sad as, what was it, March 17th, 2018?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. That was the latest tip of that Friday night slate, and I had to wait all the way until that. So just if you think you had it bad. All right, second round here. Houston, and we had Gonzaga. Okay, this is where I talk about the bracket, this region having a low floor and a high ceiling. A game like this, we could have Gonzaga make this a really good game because of their history and their Sweet 16 streak and their predictive metrics. Or Houston is obviously a lot better of a team. They could win by 15, 20. I won't give my pick yet. I'll throw it to Matt first.
I'm just looking at Gonzaga's games, and there's nothing that they had in the non-conference that makes me think that they could win this game. I think a lot of people fell in love with Gonzaga after they blew up Baylor, but now we look at a Baylor team that just is not the team that we thought Baylor was at the beginning of the season. I think Gonzaga can make this close. In fact, in one of my brackets, I did say, you know what, I'll pick Gonzaga. I usually pick one main bracket and a second bracket where I'm like, you know what are some picks that I just have a feeling about? I just want to make a fun one. And I said, you know what, I'll just go with Gonzaga. But in my main bracket, I'll say this right now, I have Houston winning it all. To me, I believe they're going to be the champion of this tournament. So there's no reason for me to pick against that right now in this podcast. I think that Houston has arguably the best defense coming into this tournament. Health is a little bit of a problem, but our reporter, Manav Gupta here at CB Review, he's down at Houston. He said, look, I think they're going to be healthy. I don't think it's a big concern, like maybe for the first round, but after this weekend, this will be all right. We'll be 100%. So I'm taking his word on that. I think that Houston would win this game over Gonzaga. I think they could be a real trendy upset pick. I think that Gonzaga can give them a hard game, but I got to roll with the Cougars here.
I could see this game being 32-31 at halftime, but that's probably Gonzaga's best chance to win this game. Houston defensively is just so dominant. According to Evan Maya, who tracks really every player and sees who's the best players in the country, both offensively, defensively, and combined, Houston has 2 of the top 4 players in the country defensively, and Terrence Arsenault and JoJo Tugler. And both of those guys come off the bench. That just shows how crazy their depth is. What really stands out, though, is their three-point shooting. They're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country. LJ Cryer has been phenomenal all year, and I think he has a big game, especially being guarded by Nembhard. And then defensively, like I said, I think Tugler will give EK nightmares all night, and I just don't know if Gonzaga has the depth to really overcome the struggles there. So I like Houston. I do think it'll be like a 10 to 12-point game, but it'll be close at half for sure.
This is the game that worried me because as of right now, just to spoil, I do, and because this could very much change in the next 24 hours, but I did have Houston winning my whole thing in my bracket. And I think it's really between the 1 seeds. It's historically been a 1 seed dominated championship over the last 10 years or so. And I think this year it's very top heavy. But also like Duke, 25% of the people, I referenced that people's bracket when I was having my stroke over there earlier. 25% of people picked Duke to be their champion. 21% picked Florida. Only 8.8% picked Houston. So like if you want to beat your friends, it's probably a good value pick. I'm worried about this game, but it doesn't matter. You guys both picked Houston. I'm picking Houston. So they're going to our simulated Sweet 16. And then we have the High Point Panthers against the Clemson Tigers in our little 5 against 13. Who wants to go first here?
I'll take this because as someone who does watch the ACC a lot, and I know you do too, Dan, I really like Clemson to win this game. And I know that High Point has been really fun, and they've had a really good team, and they could make this game close, and they have everything it takes to make a Sweet 16 run. But I just look at what Clemson did last year, and it felt like Brad Brownell put this together. He put everything together, and he was able to finally make a run with Clemson. It's not the same team. They don't have Joe Girard. They don't have P.J. Hall. But they still do have Ian Shefflin. They still do have Chase Hunter, who's one of the top players in the ACC. He can just take over games when he needs to. Victor Larkin's been okay, but I just think that Clemson has enough size down low to answer to Bodo. And I don't know. It's just one of those field picks. I'm not going to try to back it up with stats, but I like Clemson to move on to the Sweet 16.
Screw it. I'm going High Point. Give me High Point in the Sweet 16 as a 13 seed. I think their guard play is going to be too overwhelming for Clemson, especially with Dylan Hunter out. Obviously, they've really talented forwards, but Matt, I think you mentioned earlier, Justin Bodo, the big man down low, he's the 2-time Defensive Player of the Year in the Big South, and he's a sophomore. So that just shows how good of a defensive player he is. I think that they're going to shoot the lights out and they're going to overwhelm Clemson. Clemson's going to try to slow the game down and kind of play that half-court offense with their bigs. But I think High Point will be ready for it, and I think they'll kind of overwhelm them. And Alan Hutch just signed an extension to 2031, I believe, but that phone's going to be ringing, especially with all these big-time jobs opening up. And this will be a perfect resume boost for him and his agent.
So here are the teams that are worse than High Point in Ken Palm defensive efficiency in the tournament. The only teams. We got Wofford, 15 seed. Montana, 14 seed. We said they're both getting blown out. Nebraska, Omaha, we haven't talked about them, but they're a 15 seed. And Alabama State, they're a 16 seed. Oh, sorry, I forgot about St. Francis. But you get my point. Like, they don't play defense. And I think Clemson, they might struggle in like a setting where somebody could like match Ian Shefflin on the defensive end, contain their guards, Jaden Zachary, Chase Hunter. I don't think that happens here. I think Clemson has no trouble scoring, and it's the same thing I talked about with UCLA, Utah State. Like, inevitably, you got to make stops at some point. And Clemson is the one I feel much more comfortable making stops. So Brad Brownell's been just quietly very successful in the last 5 years as a coach. People just don't realize it. I don't know, maybe they don't have like the aura or anything, but they win games. They do well in the regular season. They win games in the tournament. I think this is another year where they just sneak up and make the Sweet 16. So that's my pick. And then who do we have in this one? We had Xavier, right?
We did have Xavier.
And then Xavier against Kentucky. I'll start here. I think we're going a little bit too far with Xavier if we have him going to the Sweet 16. This like whole cluster of Illinois that play in Kentucky and Troy, none of them intrigue me much, so I could see like a little bit of chaos happening there. I still think Kentucky goes to the Sweet 16 again. Mark,
yeah,
go ahead.
There's no reason for me to think that Xavier goes to the Sweet 16. I'll just be honest. I mean, that would be picking them to win 3 games in 6 days, and there's nothing they did this season to be anything worthy of doing anything like that. So I don't have to go past that. I just don't think they have it in them to do that. That's a lot of games for a team that's been hurt over the years. Can they stay healthy to do that, put on a run like that? I mean, they couldn't even win one in the Big East tournament, right? Like in a close game against Marquette. So it's wild that we even had Xavier this far. I just feel like I have to go with Kentucky at this point. But I hate this section of the bracket. It's my least favorite part.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I would take Illinois here, but since we took Xavier, I'll go Kentucky. Just don't love this Kentucky team, especially with Butler not 100, and he keeps re-aggravating that injury. I just don't trust a team that doesn't have guards, and Illinois does, Kentucky doesn't, but Xavier does have guards, but not as talented overall as Kentucky, so I guess we'll go Kentucky here.
Yeah, that's a good point, Matt, about that bottom half of the Midwest. I don't like it at all. I don't think any of those teams will like really challenge, and whoever makes it to the Elite Eight, I don't know, because I talked about Houston as my value tournament play or my value champion play, and I think there's a little bit of sneaky like downside with that 8-9 Gonzaga, even Georgia. But if they get past that, I really think they run through. So before we get to that, though, we still have to talk about this one. We had UCLA and Tennessee. I think Tennessee wins behind Chaz Lanier. Again, there's no like intrigue with this, but they've been a good team all year. They've won a good amount of games in the SEC. Really good lockdown defender, Jemai Mashack. I like Tennessee here. What do you think, Ariel?
I agree. Tennessee was the one team that lost to UNC this year. which leaves a bad taste in my mouth. They were their only quad one win, and I think if UCLA wins that game, then we're not even talking about UNC in this tournament. So I have a grudge against them for that, even though I did grow up in LA. Tennessee defensively will just shut them down. Meshack is an unbelievable defender, and you have to trust Siegler to kind of be a leader on the court, who I don't think UCLA has a guy like that. So give me Tennessee in this one.
Yeah, I think there's reason to believe that Zakai Ziegler could be one of those guys that takes Tennessee a long ways in this tournament. If you talk about an experienced point guard, which is one of those things that propels teams in March. So I have no issue with picking Tennessee in this game.
All right, and then I already alluded to it, but Houston against Clemson. I'll throw it to Matt first.
I had more trouble picking Houston over Gonzaga than I did with Houston over Clemson. I just think this is a game where Houston could shut them down. While I like the energy that Ian Shefflin brings, Locken can sometimes be I don't really know any other word to say than a little bit of a wimp down low, right? I just think that sometimes he's just not as strong as he can be. And I feel like Tugler could just literally just destroy him inside the paint. I'm not going to lie. I think that you could just see this game become a game where Houston gets up on Clemson big and doesn't look back. So I've got the Cougars in that one.
Yeah, if you put Houston in a game where you win in the half court, they're going to win every time. And that's what Clemson's going to try to do. They have one of the slowest tempos in the country. That's how they win, so I don't blame them. But that's also how Houston wins, just because they have so many great defensive players, and they have so many guys who can create their own shot as well, especially down low. And with their guards, with Sharp and Cryer, having great seasons. So I like Houston here. I think they'll win by like 8-10, but should be a pretty slow, grit and grind kind of game.
Yeah, same here. I think Houston wins, we'll say like 65-58. That's my exact prediction.
Yeah, we just talked about the East region, how there's Duke, Arizona, and what was the other one? Alabama and
Arizona, Alabama, Wisconsin.
And Wisconsin. Those are going to be like two of the most fun games. And then you come to the Midwest, and it's going to be like 1st to 60 wins. So
yeah,
the different styles in the different regions.
Well, this would be an interesting one. Tennessee plays Kentucky, which we already saw. We saw twice this year already, and I believe Kentucky won both times. I feel like this is a bad matchup for Tennessee. Kentucky did just happen to shoot the lights out. I'm looking at it right now. They went 12 for 24 from 3 both times. So, like, regression to the mean. Kentucky has a normal shooting night. Maybe Tennessee would have the edge there because both of those games were relatively close. I still think it's a bad matchup. I think Kentucky wins, and they are able to stretch the floor a little bit and have another successful 3-point shooting night. So Kentucky to the Elite Eight. I don't know why I'm really having this, but like it's not. That's why you can never make predictions before you see the bracket. That's all I'll say. Because I definitely did not think of Kentucky as an Elite Eight team, but here we are. Look at what they've got.
Yeah, I'll be real. I really like this Tennessee team. If they weren't in Houston's bracket, I'd have them in the Final Four, and I know that's kind of going ahead of us a little bit, but I think they're bound to beat Kentucky at this point, and I'm still going to ride Ziegler. I'm still going to ride what this Tennessee team can do. This might not be a Dalton Connect Tennessee team that we saw last year, but I think there's still a lot of good players on this team that can take over and that can score offensively and that can shut down teams defensively. And Ariel mentioned it too. If Kentucky's going to have problems with not having guards, then Tennessee is going to expose that this time around.
I agree with everything you said, Matt. It's hard to be a team 3 times, especially as even matched as these two teams are. So I'll go Tennessee here. I know it's another boring 1 versus 2, but in this region, that's not too exciting. Like you guys mentioned, I think these are the 2 best teams.
Is it hard to beat a team 3 times if you're evenly matched, or is it just, that's how it works? Like does it have anything to do with the fact that you beat them the first 2 times? I don't know. I don't know if someone did a statistical study on it. I don't know if I believe it. It tactically speaking, sure, there's a punch and a counter punch, and usually you make the adjustment, you see what you did wrong. I don't know if I necessarily believe in that theory, but we'll see. So we had Houston and Tennessee by consensus in our Elite Eight, and I'll throw it to Ariel first.
Yeah, another slugfest to cap off the Midwest region. Another 1st to 60 kind of game. Although I could see this being a surprisingly high-scoring game if Lanier and Cryer just have huge games, and it's one of those games where everyone's tuning in, they're just trading back and forth. I still like Houston here defensively. They're just better, and from a depth perspective, I just trust them more. even if Juwan Roberts isn't playing. If he isn't playing, though, I could see this going either way. But with him healthy, it's Houston here, and well deserved. They have a really good chance of making the Final Four, and their first Final Four since the COVID year, which they beat all double-digit seeds to get there. So this is their first, hard-earned Final Four, and I think Houston fans will appreciate that.
Yeah, I know, Dan, we've already talked about it. We both have Houston winning it all.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't need to expand much more on what I've already said. I mean, this is a team that I like the guard play. I like the defense. I like the fact that they can make 3-point shots. I mean, they're top of the country in both of those, right up there near the top. They have everything you need to win a championship. They have a big man down low. They've got literally, if they stay healthy, Houston has the perfect roster in this bracket to win the national championship.
Yeah.
I truly believe
that's exactly what I've been thinking. Like, I look at a lot of the past 5-7 champions, and I'm like, these teams profile a lot like Houston. And keep in mind, this is a lot better of an offensive team, at least by the predictive metrics, than we're used to seeing with Houston. It's usually like a good, not great offense and a very elite defense. Now they've got it both. This is their year. Kelvin Sampson is a perennial, like, second weekend participator. I think he gets all the way this year. So Houston, at least the Final Four out of this Midwest region. And that does it for today's edition of the CBB Review Studio podcast. Tomorrow, we've got the last region. We got the West and the Florida Gators and all their competitors. So we'll talk about that. But for now, that will do it for today's edition of the CBB Review Studio podcast. You can see our socials scrolling along the bottom of the screen. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all of the above. But once again, enjoy your first four tonight. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Take care.